Welcome back. My name is Guy and this is the second video of my Murphy bed build. Last time I built the frame for the bed that will attach to the wall. This time I'm going to build the frame and panel front that has the look of large doors. Let's get to work. Well, here's the lumber I have for the doors for this project. It's all solid cherry. Right now there's about 35 board feet or so. I've got a couple extra boards in case I make a mistake, which of course never happens. I've already milled it down to 15/16 of an inch, and now I'm going to take it over to the joiner, flatten one face, and then continue the milling process down to 3/4 of an inch. With all the material thickness planed down to 3/4 of an inch for the rails and the stiles for the fronts, I need to start ripping them down to width. In this case, it's going to be 5.5 inches, and I'm just going to do that here at the table saw. With all the rail and stile material cut down to that 5.5 inch width, I need to cut it to final length. In this case, it's going to be 18 1/4. I've got a stop set up on my miter saw, and I just need to cut 8 pieces like this. Well, these are all the rails for the two doors. This is going to be a door, and this is going to be a door. These two pieces here are going to get glued up. It'll make more sense as I go a little bit further. But one thing I really want to point out is how I cut these boards. Now this is one board, this is one board, this is one board, and this is one board. And I'm going to make sure that I mark these so that the grain flows from rail to rail as you go up through the doors. It's something small you can do, but it makes a really big difference visually when everything is complete. Now that these two panels are out of the clamps and I've cleaned them up a little bit, I need to make grooves where the door panels are going to go in. So I don't need to put them all the way around this, just on certain sides. So I'm just going to take this piece of chalk and mark where they all go on here. I'm ready to start making the grooves in these boards for the panels. Now that plywood is 1/4 inch thick, but it's not 1/4 inch thick. It's much less than that. So what I'm going to do is I've got the blade raised up 3/8 of an inch, which is going to be the length of my stub tenons. I've got the fence moved over 5/16 of an inch from the blade. I'm going to make a single pass, and that'll put this kerf right down the center of the board. Then I'm going to move the fence over 1/32 of an inch, go down, flip the board around, do it again, and then I'm going to micro adjust the fence over until I can get that 1/4 inch piece of plywood directly in the center of this panel with a snug fit. I don't want that panel at all to rattle inside the frame. Well, after those first two passes, you can see what I have here. It'll actually go on there and it's snug, but there's no way that I'm going to get the full length of a panel in there. It's just too snug. So I'm going to move my fence over, just a little bit, probably no more than 3 or 4 thousandths of an inch. Cut it again on both sides and see how that fits. Well, I moved the fence over just a touch, ran it through again, both sides, and that's what I have right there. It's still got some grip to it, but it's not super tight. When you're putting panels in like this in the grooves, it's important that those fit in easily, but still they won't rattle inside that. Well, these are all the stiles for the two doors, and they're pretty long, so I've taped them together. My stop really won't work because it doesn't go that far. So I'm going to square one end, measure it for length, and then cut the other end. Now all the rails are going to get stub tenons that fit into those long stiles I made before. I've got my test piece. I put a dado stack in my table saw, and I've exposed 3/8 of an inch with the sacrificial fence, which is the depth of my groove here. And I've raised a bit up so it's just slightly lower than this groove. I'm going to make a pass using my miter gauge. I'm going to spin it around, make another pass, and see how well that fits. If I'm lucky, it'll be fat, and then I can go back, raise the blade up just a little bit, and sneak up on the cut until it fits in there perfect. Actually, the third time was the charm on this, and it fits in there. It's fairly snug, and it's flat on both the top and the bottom, which is good. Now I just need to take the rest of the rails and get the stub tenons on them. Measuring for the door panels is pretty easy. I know these grooves are 3/8 of an inch deep, so I'm just going to measure this at 17.5 and 27 3/4. So now that I have those measurements, all I need to do is add 3/4 of an inch, and again, that's the depth of the groove on both sides. And then after I get that number, I'm just going to deduct 1/8 of an inch to give myself a 1/16 inch of play all the way around. This is the 3/4 inch cherry plywood I have for those doors, and the pattern on it is, it's okay. I need to cut all this off on the bottom. I need 2 pieces that are roughly 29 inches long and 19 inches wide. It's actually a little bit smaller than that, but that's going to be my rough dimensions. But I want the grain to flow from the bottom panel into the top panel, or this way, however I decide to do it. But I just need to start cutting this up and paying attention to where the cathedrals are when I cut them. I've got more than enough to get the 4 panels out of this, so I'm good. Cut these panels to length, I'm going to use my crosscut sled. And what I'm going to do first is take this, move it past the stop a little bit, maybe 1/8 of an inch. I'm just going to eyeball it. Make a cut, and then push this piece up against the stop, make a cut, then flip this piece over and square the other edge. And I'll have 2 identical length panels. Well, here's the 4 sequentially cut door panels, and they actually look pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with them. I've definitely marked, left top, left bottom, right top, right bottom. You get the idea. I'm going to do one more dry fit, and if everything goes well, I'm going to go ahead and do a glue up. The glue ups are done and very flat, very square, which is where I want to be on this. I also should mention that I used hide glue. If you don't have hide glue, use a 2-part epoxy, a slow setting 2-part epoxy. That'll allow you to move the pieces around a little bit. If you use regular tight bond or PVA glue, it has water in it and it's going to swell those joints up. And in a minute or two, you're really not going to be able to move the pieces around if you need to, which is very helpful on a large glue up like this. So I'm going to let these sit for a full 24 hours before I take them out of the clamps. Well, the panels are out of the clamps, and I've sanded everything down to 180 grit, and they're really nice and square and really flat, and I'm really happy with the way they turned out. I've also sanded all the plywood panels that make up the case. The next thing I need to do is that one top piece. I need to glue that up. Well, the top is all glued together and clamped up. I still need to clean up the glue squeeze out yet. And I put the sides on there dry. I just want to make sure that all the holes line up later. So I'll let this sit overnight, take it out of the clamps, and then clean it up a little bit more.